But you don't have to be a top producer. Listen, I came down here with no business. I didn't have anything.
I meant meaning someone who's a top producer but is an asshole.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No, get him out. Well,
right.
I would hope not. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, sometimes it happens. But look, there are people that could be an asshole because that's what they were accustomed to at their last company because that was the culture.
Yeah.
But it was tolerated.
But you're going to get corrected pretty quickly because you're going to realize that your peers are not going to respond to it.
Welcome to Stop Whining About Real Estate. Join us as we chat, sip, banter, and wine with the best in the biz. Grab a glass of your favorite vino, sit back, relax, and let's wine together. Today's guest knows real estate inside and out, literally. Gregory Frank is a second-generation realtor who spent 18 years owning and operating Blackstone Mortgage in New York before bringing his expertise to South Florida's luxury market. Now a standout agent with the powerhouse Platt Group at Compass, Greg combines his mortgage background, real estate hustle, and no discount attitude to deliver next-level service. Let's welcome Gregory Frank to the show. Welcome to Stop Whining About Real Estate. I am your host, Sarah Biernbaum. With me today is my co-host, Emmanuel St, Germain, CEO of Choice Mortgage Group. And our guest today, what were you going to say?
No, she almost forgot the company we work with.
No. And our
you
guest,
got that right. There was like a pause.
Oops.
You recovered well, but
I always do. And
until I pointed out.
And our guest today is Gregory Frank. He is a Compass agent. He's a luxury agent here in the West Palm Beach market, or Palm Beach County market. I should probably redo all of this. Should I redo it?
She's like in the Trenton, New Jersey markets, focusing on Newark.
Kind of like it.
Do you? Whatever. We'll roll with it. All right. Our guest today is Gregory Frank. He's an agent with Compass here in Boca Raton. He covers a lot of the Palm Beach County market. He is a part of the Platt Group team that is also with Compass. They have a huge presence here in South Florida. And we're just really, really excited to have you. I've gotten to know Gregory a little bit over the last couple months, and it's been a pleasure. So welcome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Good to be
absolutely.
here.
But now there's an asterisk here because I don't know if you know this, but you now single-handedly already have a record for this show, and we've barely started. You have the absolute longest introduction we've ever had.
Well, because
I'm like, did I close the biggest transaction that I don't know about?
I messed up the first one, so I wanted to make sure that I got it right.
No, I didn't even. I thought we were just going to keep rolling.
Got it. Well, we'll pick one and we'll go with it.
I like the long version.
All right, go ahead.
Merge it all together.
All right. Well, so let's start right off, Greg. Like we've talked about. So one of the really cool things about you and your background that I love, which you don't really see as often. So tell me, and what I mean by that is being from the lending side. You own your own mortgage company, correct. So we want to definitely dabble into that. But going from lending into the real estate side. You don't see it happen very often. You know, oftentimes what we see more is a real estate agent will want to get their loan officer license, but that's more of a compensation type thing.
Correct.
I don't think you see as many people trying to do both jobs anymore. Mm-hmm. I think there might have been a long time ago where people were trying to double end, if you want to call it.
For sure.
But so let's start. How'd you get into mortgages, and then why'd you exit, and why real estate as opposed to anything else?
So it actually goes back to when I was like 7. My mother became a real estate agent when I was 7 or 8. And, when she started, she worked for a company called Century 21 with the brown jackets. Mm-hmm. And she couldn't sell a home. And my dad said to her, "You're not quitting." Because every day she was like, "I want to quit, I want to quit." And he's like, "You're not quitting until you sell your first home. Once you sell a home, if you want to quit, quit." So it took her a year. She sold a home. Fast forward, she started her own company called Sterling Properties. She had about 50 agents, Gold Coast of Long Island, and she eventually sold it to Sotheby's. So I grew up in the business, not working at 8 or 10 years of age, but every night before cordless phones, we had the corded phone and we had the extra long cable. So when the call came in at dinner, she could like pace the kitchen and all that. So every night, instead of having family conversations, we basically had a master class in real estate sales.
Very cool.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. Yeah. And I didn't know it then. I didn't understand any of it then. I was just like, wow, she could sell. And it was great going to the office and all these people. So watching her turn down offers from like Douglas Elliman back in the day. So I watched this company really, really grow. So when I came out of college, I was involved in investment banking for a little bit. And I did some online trading and, I had a whole separate career kind of overseas doing platform sales into banks and brokerage firms. So when I came back after 9/11, I wanted to get into a new career. And I had some friends that had a mortgage license kind of on the shelf. They had a huge company for closings, and then they owned a title company. And they were like, Greg, why don't you go work at a top mortgage company, understand the business, and then we'll start a business together. So that's what I did. I went to a company called Preferred Empire, which was Elliman's in-house mortgage company at the time. Learned the whole business, and within 8 months, I started a company called Blackstone Mortgage. And what I found at the time was 99% of the mortgage brokers out there were going after the same business, right? It was Long Island, so they were either going after subprime, FHA, or just straight up conforming loans. And I realized that nobody was paying attention to the jumbo space. So I created some marketing concepts. I took out some ads in the Robb Report, the New York Times Magazine, and a magazine called Homes and Estates. And I went after 5, 7, and 10-year interest-only jumbo loans. And the business exploded. I mean, literally overnight, it just completely exploded. So that was how I got into the lending side of it.
That's very cool. So I wish that was an option for us. The irony is the jumbo space is the least profitable. And I don't know if everyone knows this, but now today, yes. In today's world, finance world, everyone thinks because from the real estate side, if you're going to do $3, $5, $10 million transactions, it's a phenomenal payday for you guys. For us, it's, oh boy, how skinny can we get this? And are we going to keep the transaction? Because typically what happens is once a loan is over $3 million, private wealth will pretty much, undercut everybody. So it's not just us at our company, it's literally, or a mortgage broker.
Well, they want the deposit relationship.
They want the deposit relationship. Yeah. And, what most people don't realize about it is that the deposit relationship means that when you're a depository institution, as all of those institutions that have private wealth, what ends up happening is that they get to lend 10x on what you put in. So, the company, any of them that you want to use, I won't use anybody's names, but they'll say, hey, put in $250,000, we'll drop your rate half of a point, and you can literally take that money back out the next day because there's no guidelines, which there should be if you want to make an even playing fair. If someone forced you to keep that $250,000 in there, they may not make that move. But because you can put the $250,000 and now that bank gets to lend, let's just say 10x is the correct multiple, sure. They now get to lend $2.5 million that they didn't cost them anything to acquire. Their terms are really good on it.
Do you know how many times I told my clients, send the wire, 2 days later, pull it back?
Yes. And
I'll put you over at UBS, Deutsche Bank, US Trust, whatever it is. But the point that you just brought up is the reason I exited the business, because when I was doing, let's say, a $2 million loan, and let's just say it had 2 points on it, right, and a processing fee, I knew what I was making. I knew there was $40,000 in revenue coming in, and based on the percentage that my loan officer was at, if it wasn't mine, I knew exactly to the penny what I could pay them. In 2016, 2017, right around there, we then had to convert and pay by basis points. So I'm like, wait a minute. You're going to now sell a loan that I don't control the pricing. I don't control the profit. You could put it out as a loss leader, and I still have to pay you the same amount of bips on the loan. Sold the company. A true story.
He's talking about loan officer compensation.
Yeah.
So loan officer compensation dictates that if you are a loan officer, I, as an owner, whether I make money or whether I lose money, I have to pay the same amount to you. So and basis points, just, if your compensation is 100 basis points it just means it's 1%. So if she does a $400,000 transaction, I have to pay you $4,000 in that scenario. And of course, which is why there's something called price concessions. And to be honest with you, so I love this. This is a great conversation because one of the things that I realized that as I see what's happening in the recruiting world is that what we are judging, ironically, I'm wearing a jacket from a company called Redder that has this product. And what they do is like, I can look up your production. I can look up her production, my production, all of our production. Our numbers are really easy, right? There's so much information. We're tagged with our NMLS numbers. So every transaction I have, somebody can find. And same thing with real estate agents because your licenses. So they literally pull up all the information and they would look at my numbers and they would say, hey, he's done 23 million already this year. He's on pace to doing 60 something. That puts me in the top 1%, whatever it is, right? All of a sudden, but what they don't know, right? And there's a local individual that I know that just got a branch who was undercutting the market, selling his loans at a really, really low amount simply to get numbers. And what I'm getting at is put your owner hat on. You see my numbers and you want to recruit me, but all of a sudden what you don't realize is that I was giving everything away. I was giving price concessions away.
Or people were rolling up to you.
I don't care about the numbers. I care about the profitability.
Yes. Agreed.
That's
And
that's not the transparent part.
That's the one thing that nobody can see. You can't see without asking for all of my locks. And then all of a sudden you can start analyzing, okay, well, wait a minute. Like there's a concession of 100 basis points here. You got paid 100 basis points. Like how much was there to actually make?
Well, that's why I exited.
Smart.
Well, no, I mean, there was an option. The option was I could go and get my banker's license and then just start to sell portfolios of loans. But my specific business, I would say 80% of my business came from wealth managers who would call me and say, listen, I've got a client. I've got like 7 million of his money. If I do the mortgage here, he's going to leave. He's going to fire me because we are awful at it. So do me a favor and just get it done. And I built a lot of relationships with wealth advisors by doing that. And it was a great business model. But now that I'm in a position where I can't control whether or not these loans are going to be profitable that my people put out, it was too much of a risk. And I didn't want to become a banker. I was dead set against it at the time. There were just so many people in the space, and my business, Blackstone was known as a place to go for super jumbo loans. Those are not really bankable transactions. Those are portfolio deals.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, wait a minute. This, one and one is not adding up. So I said, okay, time to do something else.
So did you then go into real estate up there, or you came down here first?
No, I was still back in New York, and I got involved in a number of different startups. One was in the divorce space. I spent 10 years doing that. And I was doing some private transactions, just some deals here and there. And then the earth, the moon, and the sun aligned, and I had the opportunity to move to Florida. So once my kids got into college, I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. And if I told 100 people I was moving to Florida, 99 were like, you need to get into real estate. And it might seem weird to hear that because there are so many real estate agents in Florida. But I felt there was a massive, just a couple. But I felt there was a huge opportunity specifically for the business that I wanted to service.
Yeah.
And I took a look at, I hate using the word sphere of influence, but I looked at my internal network, my external network, the people that I knew down here. And I just felt that my acumen, my experience, and just kind of my world at the time lent itself. So I was very fortunate to have been referred to the manager of the Boca office at the time by a top performing Compass agent in New York. I also owned a real estate magazine in New York. So I had the opportunity to meet a ton of agents.
Is this David?
No, it was actually before. It was Susie Corona.
Yeah,
before David came in. So, I knew all these agencies because they were advertisers of mine for 5 years. So right away I was like, okay, there's only a small group of agencies that I would go and work for. And even then I knew that Compass was going to be where I was going to land my hat, but I just didn't know where. So it was important to me to be part of a team. All right. So I'm a huge proponent of being on a team. So, Susie basically said, look, I think you're going to do great. I'm going to connect you with the 4 top performing teams, interview with them, and kind of take it from there. And that took me almost 4 months.
Wow.
It took I did not jump into it. I went on like 20 speed dating rounds, and this is a huge decision. And I know a lot of people make very quick decisions sometimes.
Talk about why, so not to interrupt you, I apologize, but
no, go ahead.
Talk about why choosing the right team is such a huge decision.
Because it can make or break you.
How?
Oh my God, where do I begin? So the first thing is is the team there to support you, or are you there to support the team? And by the team, I mean the principals. So the first thing you have to do is take a look at contracts and see how contracts are written. Some contracts are written where you operate as your own person, do whatever you want to do. We're here to support you, give you all the tools that you need, and we all make money together.
So there's a contract between you and
the team.
Okay,
And the principals. So the team has a principal.
I did not.
I didn't know that
So
either.
teams have principals, and you have to sign a contract with that principal. Now, certain contracts will state the team principal's name goes on all the deals. You have to include us in all your marketing. If you leave the team, you have to then leave the company. I mean, these contracts, and they're all different, right? So there's not a standard. So you have to go a little far into it and figure out what the contracts look like. So that's the first thing I did. The second thing I looked at was, how is being on the team going to help me as an individual grow my business? Am I competing against anybody on the team? Am I competing against my principals? What do they bring to the table? And what do I bring to the table? And how does that work to benefit both sides? So you got to make sure it's not an even space. So I met some great principals, but I just didn't feel that they were set up for the type of growth that I wanted to be a part of. Great people, but I just don't think their goal was to take their business to the next level. I think it was, hey, if I can bring some people on and they're producing, great. I knew that wasn't going to be a fit for me because I know what I was personally, I knew what I was looking for. So at the end of the day, it really wasn't much of a decision for me. It was pretty simple. But I wanted to go through the process because you only have one shot. I mean, you only have one shot to do this.
You can't team hop within the same company.
I mean, you see it in your business, right? I used to get resumes and it was like, all right, you were at Wells Fargo for 6 months, then you went to Citibank, then you went to Bank of America, so clearly you need leads, right? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. And I feel it's the same way. It's like, if you can't cut it and then you start hopping around, maybe you need to look at how you do your business as opposed to what the other side is giving you. Right? Like,
what are some of the things that you get from a principal? And it doesn't have to be, the Plaque Group in general. You can speak generally. I think, like, as a loan officer. So for me and Jared, who's our COO and my business partner, I taught him everything. And one of the things I taught him is we are not, because we worked for another individual, and I said, we need to not be dependent on this individual. You need to know how to do everything. I know how to do everything. You need to know how to do everything. And so I took a different approach. There wasn't a team. We had a house to live in, I guess, and we were able to do whatever we wanted in that house, which allowed us to grow and allowed us to recruit, and all of that was great. But I've never had anyone that really added value to my mortgage career. So I now try to do the exact opposite. I know that there's no mortgage CEO, I shouldn't say no, very few mortgage CEOs are willing to go fly to wherever to help you land a builder deal, or, they just don't get involved. So I take that approach in trying to add value to our loan officers and future loan officers and branch managers to really kind of grow there.
For sure.
I want to steal lessons from your side of the industry now. What are the principals doing for realtors?
I think it depends, right? Each is very different.
Let me start off.
But you can go general.
Let me start off in your business. So when I was working in the mortgage industry for a big company, I was a robot. I was just there to bring in deals. I had very little support. I was fighting against 85 other agents, and I hated it. And I was like, I can do this on my own. There's nothing that they're providing me that I can't do on my own.
Right.
I know I can do this. So that's why I started the company, and I wanted to bring in not 100 loan officers. I wanted 20 seasoned, unbelievably passionate loan officers to help me grow Blackstone. So what I did was I provided 24-hour access, right? If somebody needed something, I'm there. You want me to come with you to go land a new real estate agreement? No problem. If I have to sign a desk rental, I'll do it. If you want me to go present to a board or to an association, a doctor's association, like, it's your deals. I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you succeed and grow. What's good for the goose, good for the gander.
Yep.
So in the real estate business, it's kind of the same mentality, but there's talking about things and then there's doing them. All right. So that's something that is a pet peeve of mine. Like if you say you're going to do something, do it. Otherwise, don't say you're going to do it. So in the situation I'm in right now with the team that I'm fortunate to be with, if I text or call my principals, literally within 60 seconds, I get a call back if they don't answer immediately. It could be 6 a.m. and a lot of my conversations with my team principal take place 6:30, 7:30 in the morning. It could be 11 o'clock at night. It's instant response because there's a deal pending. There's an answer that's needed in order to close a deal, get a listing, or put out a fire. So having that support is crucial, in my opinion. I mean, it's from a team perspective. The second component that is, I would say, really, really important is what does the team have that can help me grow my business? What are they doing to invest back into the team? Are there, virtual assistants at our disposal? Do we have shared drives with every type of document you can imagine? Is it a very conducive atmosphere, right? So our team is extremely collaborative. We have a group chat. We have a question about a certain neighborhood. So I focus on the luxury market. I focus on high-end condos, high-end single-family homes. I may not be the leading expert in a certain gated community out west, but somebody on my team is. So if I put that out there, or if I know who to call, I'm getting the deal.
Yeah.
Maybe I bring them into the deal just in order to be, we want to work collaboratively.
Yeah.
So these are things that the team principals have to do at the top level. And most importantly, I would say it's culture.
Yeah.
You have to have great culture, and the people that are on the team kind of have to be aligned, right? You don't want to bring somebody on that doesn't really fit the vibe because they're going to spin you into a different
Top producer,
Yeah.
but someone who's an asshole just doesn't work.
Yeah, but you don't have to be a top producer. Listen, I came down here with no business. I didn't have anything.
I meant meaning
So-
someone who's a top producer
Yeah.
but is an asshole.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No, get them out. Well,
Right.
I would hope not. Unfortunately, at the end of the
That's a
day,
tough
sometimes it
question, though, isn't
happens. But look, there are people that could be an asshole because that's what they were accustomed to at their last company because that was the culture.
Yeah.
That's tolerated.
But you're going to get corrected pretty quickly because you're
Right.
going to realize that your peers are not going to respond to it. And I've witnessed something very similar to that. But I've also seen people come in like myself that really didn't have much of a business at all. And maybe in the beginning, there were some people on the team that were like, well, why are you bringing, I know for a fact, why are you bringing him in? Why, I thought we're a team of top producers. So sometimes it's a culture. If
Yeah.
somebody can add to the culture
Yep.
and give them a little bit of leadway, to grow their business, it's just going to incentivize the team. And it's going to make the team look bigger. I mean,
You got to take a chance on people. I mean,
Yeah.
Sarah, I don't know if you know the story of Sarah, but
well, I know the real story. I don't know if you want to disclose the real story.
I meant
What's the fake story, Emmanuel?
the fake story is that I found Sarah in a dumpster.
Ah, yes.
And this is like the story we like to, I mean, obviously it's all a joke, but, and
Look at me now.
yeah, she didn't know anything about mortgages. And,
That is
now
true.
She's a rock star.
I wasn't in a dumpster, but I knew nothing about mortgages. I had never even had one. I was still a renter. Yeah.
No, anyways, and like anything, sometimes you got to take chances on people and see the upside. And I think that, so culture for me is extremely important. The reason that I said the high producer asshole is that for us, that's an issue. There's certain people that I just can't work with.
Yeah.
Well, I think also, too, from our standpoint, there's a whole ops team that we also want to protect. So you guys don't really have so much of that. It's an agent works with the clients, and there's a reputation and a relationship piece there. Yes, of course. But if that person's really good to the clients, nobody on the street, so to speak, is going to know that they're a jerk, right? For us, if there's a person that's in the sales world and they are a super high producer, but they treat our team, the people that are on our ops that are working with them every day, like crap, we need to get them out because it's a culture thing that it's dragging our ops, which is our support, down. And that's not how we want them to be treated.
We actually have a similarity.
Okay.
So we do have, they're called transaction coordinators.
Okay, yeah.
So on our deals, I won't do a deal ever again without a transaction coordinator, especially a condo, because there's so much paperwork that you have
We're
to
talking
chase
about
down
condos
now.
next, by the way.
Yeah, cool. Bring it on. So back when I was in the mortgage business, I had almost a golden wall up with my clients because a lot of my clients were either celebrity, high-end, athletes, whatever. And I'd get on the phone with them and say, oh, I was introduced to you, by Bill over at, Deutsche Bank. Talk about the market, talk about the right mortgage, talk about their goals. And then I would say something to the effect of, listen, I'm going to put you on the phone with Suzanne. She's my executive assistant. She's going to go through your income, your assets. I don't want to know anything about it. She's going to qualify. And then they would put them on the phone with their assistant. Everything would go great, processing. But I always made sure that my processors were, they're your front line. Right? They have to treat the client the same way that you do because you invested all this time, effort, and money to gain the client. This is a reflection of how you do your business. So I do the same thing here. Whenever I put a transaction coordinator on a deal, I always speak to them up front and say, listen, here's kind of how I operate. Here's, kind of the altitude that I fly at. Here's the language that I use. Feel free to be yourself, but make sure you get the job done. Always follow up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Do you guys use the same ones over and over again? Do you have some that are dedicated to the team?
Yeah, so it's not to the team. So what happens is at Compass, when you go into the back end and when you launch a file, you can choose a transaction coordinator for buyers, for sellers.
Okay.
And there's different levels of what you want them to do. And the more you want them to do, the more you pay.
Of course.
So you typically get assigned to a TC. And then if things aren't working out, you can get another one. But it wouldn't make sense for me to have, 12 deals going at once and have 7 different transaction coordinators.
No, you want everything.
So fortunately, they're smart enough to just assign you a TC if you decide that you want one. And then you get to know, she gets to know or he gets to know how you operate.
And then you just work together.
Wouldn't it be more So I'm a control freak. When it comes to business.
I have no idea.
and I don't like outsourcing unless I don't have a choice. Like the first thing I heard is that your group size is large enough and you guys probably do enough transactions. Why don't you internally have your own transaction coordinator that works for your team and then the same monies that you guys are contributing, like I'm not sorry, Compass, I don't want to take them away from their pocket, but meaning
there might
like
be something
why not
against that because Compass doesn't want to take it from their pocket.
It's a great question. And, just to set the record straight, I have 2 kids, an ex-wife, a gazillion friends, and not thousands, but hundreds of either ex-employees or group members that would tell you that I'm a control freak. So I get it.
No, I don't mean you not having
No. I'm saying I can assimilate to it because I'm a huge control freak. Yeah.
You train that person, they end up
too
being
busy, too many deals. You got 25 top producers, can't have one TC. And what happens is they're all trained on the back end through Compass. They're really good at what they do.
Yeah.
See,
it's not broken.
You don't want your principal training a transaction coordinator. There are people that do that. So, one of the reasons or one of the things that's really helped me expand my business has been relinquishing control.
It also might be a thing where, okay, you have the principals that are paying you. They get the bulk of your attention and efforts because they're essentially at the end of the month or week or whatever paying you out than other people. I don't know. There's probably some complications to it.
I don't know. I mean, so when you walked in the office, I don't know if you noticed, but in the back, so to the point about the high producers and all that stuff and protecting employees, what Sarah was referring to is that so for us, we really think that there are three cogs to the wheel. And in that sense, we've got our employees. I relinquish a tremendous amount of work just like you do, and I'm more successful now for doing it. The more control you give up. That being said, the way that you have to look at it is and this is where I think we are very different than most other mortgage companies. We invest so much in our people and we protect our ops and our people so much from the rogue loan officer. Like, you're not going to just come in and start yelling at people. Like, we're going to have to sit down very quickly. They're just as important on the team. If we think of it as a hospital, like if I'm the chief surgeon of the hospital and you're a doctor and you're yelling at her because she's a nurse, like, whoa, like, everybody has a job, but we are a team. We all have to work together. And if you are so mean to this person that now she takes it out on the client or whatever it is, like, it doesn't work. And so what we found is that by supporting our ops the way that we do, we get so much lift from it that they're happy. They're coming to work and, they know they're protected. And, we have people that will come from other companies and they're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, no, that's how it works. Like, you are protected here. That doesn't mean you can make mistakes and no one's going to say anything about it. Like, you're entitled to making mistakes. That's part of life. I make mistakes every single day.
For sure.
Just learn from them. Yeah. But I got your back. You start making too many mistakes, we'll put you on a performance improvement plan. Yeah. If that doesn't work,
performance improvement plan.
You have to.
I like that.
He just learned about those recently too.
Performance improvement plan.
Yes.
Sounds very corporate.
Well, you know what it is though? It's
new.
It's all about, it's about taking someone who has potential. If we don't think that person has potential, and at the same token,
wrong seat.
Listen, firing someone, right? We're in a right to work state. So it's very easy to let someone go if they're here in Florida. Every state is different. But if you think about the concept of starting from scratch, hiring and starting that training over, it's a lot.
Time, energy, effort, money.
So if I can figure out how to help you a little bit more, if it's an attitude thing, totally different.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
If it's I need,
that's culture. That's just is it a culture fit?
Right.
And unfortunately, it's well, maybe it's fortunately, it has a lot to do with how a company performs when you have the right culture internally and everybody kind of adapts to it and they all feel the same way.
100%. And I take that on my back because that's leadership. That's my responsibility to set the tone of exactly what I want everything else to look like. And so, that's why I say I make mistakes every day. I have no problem saying that. I want them to understand you're going to make mistakes. It's what you do about it afterwards. If you duck and hide, if you aren't willing to accept accountability and responsibility for that mistake and say, hey, you know what, Sarah, you're right. That's on me. I made that mistake. What can I do?
Totally.
Can you teach me?
Happily.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like it is. It's important.
I have one thing really quick, and then I do want to go to condos because I know it's a hot button. So you are on a team. You love being on your team, and your team really does offer a lot of the support that you want to grow.
Totally.
Being that you're on a very big team that has great presence in this area, how do you set yourself apart so that people know, yes, you're on the Platt team, but also Greg is the person that I want to work with? So how has that kind of evolved for you?
It's a great question. I don't feel that I'm competing against everybody on the team. We all service different markets. We have different demographics of clients. Obviously there's some overlap.
Of course.
There's a bunch of agents on our team that are so good and they focus on specific areas, and that's where the majority of their business comes from. And there's really not a whole lot of overlap there. At the end of the day, we all build our own networks, right? So the majority of the business should always come from your network. I don't buy leads. I don't go on Zillow or really anything like that. I'm just out there meeting people. And I don't think that I'm crossing paths with other people on my team. And I think that when they're out doing the same thing, they're not crossing paths all the time with agents on the team. There's just so much business out there and there are so many people out there. I mean, look, if half of the team lived in the same community, I think that'd be a huge problem.
Yeah.
I think then it would get a little challenging.
Yeah.
And we have teammates that live in the same community. There are people on the team that live in the same community as the principals, but there's a ton of business to go around. And I think as long as you work collaboratively, it doesn't really make a dent.
As you were speaking, I was thinking about the different teams that I know between Compass and other companies. Your team might be the one that rings the most bells as far as understanding that there are agents that are very specific to different demographics and locations. Like I can think of a handful of people on your team and I know exactly where they focus. And you're right, there is very kind of specific spaces and where people are the experts, so to speak.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
And I think it just kind of worked out that way because I know that the principals hire first based on culture.
Which is, I think,
it's got to be a culture fit. Oh, yeah. It's got to be a culture fit. And they've done a phenomenal job at it. I mean, our team is awesome. We get along so great.
You guys have a lot of fun together.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And it's, we're protective of that. I think the principals have done a great job at protecting that.
Where I've met, where I tend to meet the most amount of people from a business type standpoint like that, for me, it's restaurants.
Yeah.
You go to restaurants. So like I was literally, so my mom's down here visiting. And so we went to Akira back last night for dinner. And just in general, and couple weeks ago, my dad was down there and we sat next to Tom, who owns Seaside Builders. And like, you just get to meet people. So like, I love to sit at the bar if I'm going to eat more so than the restaurant piece. It's not, I understand it's not as sexy, but the bar, like you start chatting with people around you.
Yeah, it's
a whole vibe. When you got people around you, like
so crazy
from
that you're saying this.
From a business standpoint, like that's when I always did my best. And I think not because I'm some great loan officer, it's more because, all right, so number one, if you're a well-rounded person, I can sell anything. I just choose to be in the mortgage industry, but it doesn't matter. It could have been anything that requires interpersonal skills. I'm very analytical, so that works for me, and that's why this, works well for me. If the real estate aspect is much more, it's a longer sale in terms of you being with a person, whether, if you're going to show Joe, houses, you're spending a lot more time than we do, than what you've done in the past. It was much more transactional in our mortgage space. You've now gone into much more of a relationship-oriented world. How have you fared? Was it hard to make the transfer? I know you had mom as a backdrop to kind of show you that, but did you find it difficult to change? Because it's a change. It's a whole different change of mindset. To me, there was no change. Okay.
And I'll tell you why. So, by the way, when I first got into the mortgage business and I had not a single deal, and I didn't have any relationships, every day for lunch, I went to a local steakhouse on Long Island and sat at the bar. This is a true story. And I made sure that by the time I left, anybody that was at the bar knew who I was and what I did, and I gave them a business card.
So smart.
Because all you have to do is start talking to people. Connect with them somehow, some way, slide in what you do and see if you can add value. So it's just listening to you say that, I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what I did.
And
I gained weight because I ate a lot of steak. But then, after the third week, I'd walk in the door and the bartender, Billy, would be like, oh, that's Greg. He's a mortgage broker. These guys are just talking about it.
Yeah.
Right.
For real.
Yeah.
So in the mortgage, when I had my business, it was all about relationships for me. Right. It was, I want to say it was less transactional, unless it was a lead that, came from my SEO or my pay-per-click campaigns or stuff like that. But a lot of what I did was based on relationships with CPAs, wealth advisors, and wealth managers.
But part of that is also because the profitability warranted that, just like it does in a real estate when you're in luxury. Listen, if I'm going to make $30, $50, $70, $100,000 on a transaction, damn right, I'm happy to go to dinner with you. We'll hang out. We'll go do yoga. We'll go work out.
But that was easy. Yeah,
it's
but
easy
that
to
was
spend.
easy for me because I truly enjoyed that process. I like to be around people.
I'm not saying you did.
No, I know.
That's not
but I like to be
yeah.
around people. I like to, I like to go out. I like to do things, and I like to connect with people, figure out, what people do, I just love the whole process. So for me, it's been easy to connect with people that way, and that's how I built my referral. Yeah, and that's just how I built my referrals. And obviously, you have to perform, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's why there was a huge opportunity for me, I felt, when I came down here, even though there were a lot of other real estate agents, because just like in the mortgage business, you've got all different sorts of people down here. And I've come across some unbelievable real estate agents that I envy and admire so much because of what they've built and what they've accomplished. And, my ego is at the door. Like, I'll learn from you all day long as much as you're willing to tell me, because it's only going to help me grow. But there's also a whole nother, category of agent down here. So it's like, if you just perform and make it happen and deliver results, I mean, it's endless opportunity in real estate here.
What attracted you to condos? Did that happen by chance? Because it's a big piece of your arsenal, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of happened. I mean, look, I would say my condo business is 50-50 to my single family. I mean, it's literally like split down the middle. What I like about the condo market is that you better know what you're doing. And you have to understand the rules, the regulations. You have to be able to assess a building, make sure it's a quality investment. Are there any assessments coming down the road? Have they done their inspections? Like, there's so much to it. But the condos that I've been specializing in are on the higher end of the spectrum. They're selling anywhere between $3 and, call it $12 million. And I like to engage with those clients. Those are clients that I really enjoy being around. And I find that they become friends. I'm going to dinner now with my clients. I run into them, and it's great. So And I live here. I live in East Boca. I mean, I'm right off basically A1A and Palmetto.
Right.
So I know all the buildings. I drive by them all the time, and I meet people that live there. And it just organically became a part of my business based on my network.
I think you're one of the very few agents that says right now, especially, that they love condos. But I think your follow up to everything that you know that has to go into it, because you're aware of it and you're on top of it, makes it that much easier for you because you're paying attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
And so instead of getting into the middle of a deal and not realizing that any of those things have to be taken care of, you knew beforehand. And so it's just part of the transaction that you're going to get into.
Yep.
And so you're well prepared, which I think is huge bonus.
And now bring in the transaction coordinator.
Right.
So with condos, there's a lot more paperwork.
Of course.
I mean, there's documents, there's
all kinds of stuff.
It is out of control. So by bringing in a transaction coordinator to make sure that, in 5 days, do they apply to the condo board? Do we have all the condo docs back for review? Where are we at during the inspection period? Et cetera, et cetera. So you just have to have your machine oiled and firing on all cylinders and understand your space, right? You got to be a market expert in whatever it is that you're doing. In your market, you have to understand the different loans, the different options, no income loans or, DTI loans or whatever is out there and available. And I also think, not to sound coy with the phrase of thinking outside the box, but you have to go outside of the box to get business today. You have to do things that other people aren't doing. And in the mortgage business, I used to do things that nobody was doing. And at the time, I didn't think I was inventing anything crazy. But looking back, I was like, wow, that was a really smart thing to do because I was just doing things that other people weren't.
Well, you might have also been listening to what people were needing and gone, okay, how do I make this work? How do I make this fit? How do I give them something that they are looking for?
But it was also putting myself in the room, getting a seat at the table. I'll share a quick example. Do you know the ICSC, International Council of Shopping Centers? So ICSC is a trade organization for commercial. And every year in Las Vegas, they have a convention. And if you're a developer, a property manager, if you own shopping center, it's the who's who. I think it's the number one grossing conference in all of Las Vegas.
Okay.
And it's all the super wealthy real estate people that go to Vegas and they do deals. Like if you're on the plane, people are pulling out blueprints. It's out of control. So I used to go every year and I would get a cabana at the pool at whatever hotel I was staying at. And I would meet commercial people. And they'd be like, oh, are you a developer? Are you? No, I'm actually a residential mortgage broker. And they'd be like, well, what are you doing here? And I'd be like, well, I'll tell you what I'm doing here. I'm putting people together. By the way, what do you do? Oh, let me introduce you to Bill. He's a funder. And let me introduce you to Tony. He works at Cushman & Wakefield. And I would put people together. But more importantly, I'm like, everybody here owns multiple homes and they're all $1 million homes. And there's no other residential mortgage broker competing for anybody's business or attention right now. So I would leave and clients, the very first client I picked up there sent me a spreadsheet, a 2-page spreadsheet of all of his single family and second home holdings. It was out of control. And I refinanced like 80% of it at the time.
Wow.
And then I became his guy. And that story repeats itself over and over because I put myself in a situation where I didn't really have any competition. Now, I'm not saying that, you could do that all day, every day, but I just try to do things or I try to put myself at the table where I don't have a lot of competition.
Today's marketplace, I would say a lot of that at the moment is non-QM and condos. So, I love condos for the fact that everybody else sucks at them. And so we use that as an opportunity. In fact, there was one of the agents on your team referred me a client last night, was on the phone, they're in LA. And I said to the client, I said, when's the last time you purchased a condo? It's been a really long time. Okay, has anyone explained to you what buying a condo is like in today's marketplace? And they're like, no. I said,
take a Xanax and listen up.
I said, yeah. I said, all right, you're going to want to sit down for this one. Maybe grab some Kleenex.
Get comfortable.
Yeah, get comfortable. No, and I said, listen, they're unlike a house, pre-approving you is really simple. It's one piece of it. A condo, there's lots of things that can go wrong and it has absolutely nothing to do with you, the perfect buyer. It has to do with the association. A lot of the stuff we can overcome. And, and part of it is also to not turn someone off on buying a condo. And as an example, one of the things I'll say is, look, when you live here in Florida and our insurance goes from, $200,000 to $400,000 for the community, the board is left with some really tough decisions. And sometimes they make some financial decisions, such as how can we keep this cost a little bit down? And maybe what they'll end up doing is taking a hurricane deductible that's at 10% instead of 5%. Now, you and I know that makes it a non-warrantable transaction. We no longer can make that an agency, a Fannie Freddie type loan. And so our strength and what we've done is we said, all right, the exact same thing you did with the jumbo space. We went out and said, all right, how can I find, because this is going to be a non-QM deal. I want all the non-QM investors. I want the ones who buy everything. Yeah. And so we found those partners. And now what I do is I have the difference with how I sell versus a lot of other people is this is an A-paper guy, right? An A-paper borrower. And I said to him, I set the expectation right away of here's what happens. Here's what we're going to try. If we have to fall back, it doesn't mean it's a bad investment because a board decided to raise the deductibles, reduce the price.
Totally.
It affects your financing, but it doesn't mean the investment is a poor investment. It's a state of the times. And Fannie and Freddie, right? We've had multiple conversations with them that they need to adapt to the times as well and change those.
It's a great explanation.
But what it does is all of a sudden now that person goes, okay, got it. And they're ready. And they're ready. So when something comes back, they don't say, well, what's going on? What's going on? So for me,
it's like guilty with an explanation.
I've always found it to be my strength. You've listened to multiple of my conversations. Setting expectations for me is by far the most important thing that I can do as a loan officer. Yeah.
It's crucial.
Well, the client understands. So I think Sarah said it to me. She's like, well, what it shows is that when you speak to a client, they walk away, they know exactly what's about to happen, every single step, and that lets them know that you know what you're doing.
For sure.
Even if they don't understand the full conversation, because you might have gone into stuff that's more technical than they really can comprehend because they don't do this as often, they go, you know what? He really explained everything. We may not fully understand it, but we can ask him questions. But he seems to really have this under control. We got to stick with this guy because he's going to get us to the finish line. Yeah. And that's, I think, a good feeling for people because most people do this a whole handful of times in their life and that's it. And so they don't remember what it was like the last time and they're not up with what's really going on, most of them, unless they're investors. But when they have a conversation like that and you've laid everything out and you've given them all the different options and the avenues that we could be taking, they go, all right, cool, this guy's got me. Here we are.
We did a whole, we'll introduce you to Nico, but Nico runs our condo desk. And I literally, I tell everyone he's my dog. And people they laugh at it when I say it, because it's a slight little joke. But the hardest part about a condo,
he's a dog with a bone.
Is that it's getting someone to respond. It's getting the property managers to give you the documentation. In fact, one of the things that I don't, if the Governor DeSantis is listening, which I'm sure he is, because we're probably at the top of this podcast.
He's listening right now in the back of his car.
Absolutely.
We've gone live for him.
Yeah.
But what they should do, are you familiar with a company called HomeWise? No. So HomeWise is one area where a lot of these property management companies will store documents, their insurance documents. So we pay a fee, and then that's how we go get your master insurance, things like that. Really what they need to do, and here's my billion-dollar idea for someone, is that they should force every single condo association to always keep all of the documents in one place. There's
imagine that.
There's
Could you
no
imagine?
reason.
That would be amazing.
Is that not the hardest part about condos?
It'll never happen because it makes sense.
You have a condo questionnaire. It has to be updated every quarter. Whatever. There's easily ways to make it so much, because that's the biggest problem with a condo. We could look at. Don't say two buildings side by side, but let's say, you have one property management company who's fantastic to work with, and they're amazing. They send everything to your seller, to your buyer, to the mortgage lender in a timely manner. And then there's another building with a beautiful view, right? Amazing view, which is what a lot of condo owners, I'm assuming, are looking for. And all of a sudden, that property manager they're just not quite there.
Yeah.
And, they're just not,
They just
they're
don't feel like
crabby,
it.
they're unhappy.
Was I supposed to reply to that?
Yeah, oh, well,
haven't
you
gotten
got
to it yet.
time. Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to take 30 days to approve your application. Why?
Yeah.
And it makes such a different experience for the buyers and your sellers if you're representing a seller. So I feel like there should there needs to be
it's a great
leadership
solution.
at the top.
I think it's great.
Because it's a problem.
Yeah.
And condos are an issue today. So if you want to fix it, you can't let every single property manager do everything.
Well, fortunately, a lot of the condos around here, the better condos, they have it together. They're a step ahead. They've got things moving in the right direction. The problem is when you get into some of the lower price condos, the condo owners don't have the capital. They don't have the money to take out of their retirement because they don't know how long they're going to live. They don't have the money for these, either the renovations or the improvements,
Assessments.
Some people look at an HOA fee, they go, oh, that's for the gate booth, or the pool. They don't realize where that money's going and how critical it is into the viability of the building. So, it's like in real estate, either you repair your home and improve it along the way, or you pay for it at closing. It's the same thing with condos.
Yeah.
Even, so, I live in, are you familiar with Cannery Row?
Where?
Cannery Row. It's close to your office.
Oh, okay.
So
It's
on
in
Bankers
Delray
Row,
off
just a little further.
Pineapple Grove.
So I live over there.
I do know where my office
We
is.
have like 82.
He's like, wait, my house?
Wait, my office? Haven't been there in a month.
There's like 82 units, right? Townhouses, something like that. And our HOA dues are pretty expensive. I was on the board for 4 or 5 years. And I've lived there, 10 years now? I think we're on our 6th or 7th property manager.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it's a really, really tough industry.
Yeah.
You should see how they communicate to people. Like so many times I'm sitting here on the board and a homeowner has a concern and there's just no empathy and just the way they talk to people. It's a big opportunity to, whenever I see people upset.
And by the way, the people that run the board are super important. The other day I was with some clients at maybe my favorite building down here.
Which is?
Meisner Grand.
Okay.
Love it. And I was touring a client through the building and a resident came over and was like, oh, I'm on the board here and, I'm responsible for this renovation and I'm so excited if you want me to talk about it. And I look at him and I'm like, Jay? I know him from back in New York. We used to belong to the same country club. And I said to my client, I'm like, if this guy is on the board, then the stock just went up. I know things are getting done right if you have the right people running the ship. But then when you offload to a management company, you're at the
mercy of
you're at the mercy of First Residential or
because they don't pay them
is.
enough and they have multiple communities.
And by the way, it's a very tough job
thin
for them right now. It's like, if mortgage rates went to 2% tomorrow, picture being a processor and Chase. Misery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they are so overworked right now because they have to keep their numbers down too, their costs down. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So call and be really, really nice to them at first.
Send flowers.
Yes.
Send flowers, send
Chocolate,
food.
booze, whatever.
And then go in with the questions.
So wrapping up, Greg, tell us what is your prediction for this year's market? And real quick, Howard, do you find that the tariffs that we've been dealing with for the last handful of weeks, have they made any kind of impact on people that you are used to dealing with? I know that I've seen my portfolio go down very fast. It went back up some, but not all the way to what it was. And are people holding back on buying, especially in the luxury market?
I haven't experienced it. A member of my team just lost the deal. The buyer backed away from their deposit. They backed away from their deposit
Because it was cheaper.
because their financial planner
Told them.
scared them
To not do anything.
I don't pay attention to the noise. Stocks go up, stocks go down. There's always something going on in the marketplace that's going to, either provide fear or enthusiasm. I personally just keep my blinders on and do business when I can. If a client calls me and they're concerned about tariffs, it's not really my position to give them financial advice. So I don't. I would say, look, you got to consult your financial planner or, talk to your wife or your husband, whatever. But if we put the offer in now, it's like, but it's not my job to play that role. But from a personal, just from my life experience watching markets, it's like, stocks go up, stocks go down.
Yeah.
There's always some type of turmoil out there. I think if you keep your blinders on and just go straight, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
But I like to take advantage of opportunities. And I think that there are some really good opportunities right now, especially in the condo market. There's more buyers than sellers right now, hands down. So if you're looking to purchase, whether it's a home or a condo, you have the power. You don't have a lot of competition, right? And you can get seller concessions. You can get more for your money. You can really do a good job right now if you're a buyer. On the condo side, I think there are some huge windows of opportunity. If you're willing to listen to some noise for 6 months, if you're willing, to live with a renovation in the hallways, if you're willing to just invest a couple of years of not having everything perfect, there are some really good opportunities. There are some good buys right now.
Are people dumping condos?
People have to. They don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Because they can't afford the assessment.
Yep.
And again, it depends on where the building is, right? So the building that I just mentioned, their assessment was over $200,000, but it's all relative because prices of condos there, go up to $8-9 million.
Someone's heartache,
but if you're
someone else's opportunity.
If you're looking in the $500,000 range and you hit somebody with a $75,000 or $80,000 assessment, they may not have. It's too much. They may not have the money.
Yeah.
So you're seeing people selling because they have to. It's honestly, it's really sad that people are being displaced from their homes. I think it's really, really awful. But at the same token, just because you live in a condo and you pay an HOA fee, you shouldn't always be under the assumption that everything's going to be perfect at the end of the day. Pay attention to the board minutes. Pay attention to the financials. If you see the concrete is cracking every year, don't just talk about it. Bring it up at a board meeting.
Right.
Like, you have to be invested in your investment and your asset. And I just feel that a lot of times people just pay their HOA fee and they go into their unit and they live their lives and they're not really focusing on the things that they should be. So hopefully it was a lesson that people can learn
Invest
from.
in your investment.
Totally
I like
agree.
that.
Pay attention.
If a buyer or seller wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
They can email me, greg.frank@compass.com. They can call me, 516-776-0808.
Still got the New York number.
Yeah. I'll never get, it's funny.
Isn't it funny that they're 516 and we're 561?
Everybody down here has a New
Dials
York
it
number.
wrong.
And when I came down here, I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to get a 561. No one's going to want to work with me. And literally within the first week, I'm like, all right, I've met maybe 100 new people. Nobody has a Florida area code. Right. And by the way, half of them are from like my hometown. So, this is the sixth borough. I love it.
It sure
I love it. I'm never getting rid of my 516. And I kind of feel like people I know from New York, nobody's getting rid of their number. It's like, because we're still connected.
The first time I saw it, I was like 561 and I dialed it wrong. And then I was like, I think I have your number wrong. And they're like 516. And I was like, oh, it is 516.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I was
I'm never giving it up. I love it. I love it.
Awesome. Well, Greg, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Thanks for being here, Greg. Okay, that's enough whining for one day. We are so happy that you could join us today on Stop Whining About Real Estate. So please, not only listen, but subscribe, follow us, download, share, and if you're feeling it, give us a 5-star review. Hey, and if you'd like to be a guest on the show, please email stopwhining@choicemortgage.com. Thanks so much.